I always knew that my life would be extraordinary. Even growing up in a small village in Ukraine, I just knew. One day, my older brother went to the United States to be a student. He sent me letters that made me want of going there too. But it was just a dream of my life, as there were no signs that my dream would come true. I was a freshman in the university preparing to be a teacher of French language. France seemed more realistic, so I could only dream about going to the United States. And when my brother called me 5 years later and said, "Congratulations, you won a green card," I felt joy and sadness at the same time. I had made completely different plans for my future, and immigrating to the new country was just a dream, but seemed very unrealistic. My future husband and I had been dating for 7 years. Our wedding was already planned, but the green card was not for both of us. It was just for me. I wanted to have a family, but at the same time, I dreamed of being in the film industry, and I knew this would be my only chance to come to America. I decided to challenge myself and have both. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was my only decision. It was then when I realized that life gives us chances, not at the moment we want them, but when we are ready for them. And no matter what kind of challenges I had in my life before, nothing compares to immigrating to the new country. Moving to the United States was a big change that caused a lot of thoughts and feelings. At first, it was hard for me to dive into local life because my husband was still in Ukraine and I was torn between two countries, flying back and forth every 3 to 5 months. This made it difficult for me to fully immerse myself into local life. I didn't go to school here. I didn't have a job that required me to speak English language, so I couldn't become a member of local society. I was talking only to people from my own country due to poor language skills. I lived according to the old traditions, and I was often communicating to the people and to my friends from Ukraine over the phone. But soon, I was not able to connect with what was happening back in Ukraine because the society was moving on and I couldn't live my life there either. And trying to live in two places at once didn't help me to achieve my dream of feeling at home in the United States. This was the most difficult time in my life. I felt lost, like many immigrants who are currently in this phase. They feel as if they have lost themselves, who they were in the past before they were forced out of their country. They found themselves in the conditions they didn't choose and the places they didn't plan to live, like Ukrainians right now. Except it was my decision, and I was the only one who could change it and make the right choice. And in order to do it, I needed to know what other people did to make America their home. During the next 5 years, I met a lot of immigrants, and their stories helped me to understand what people experience in immigration, why they still don't feel like they belong here after living in the United States for more than 10, 20, or 40 years. And what stopped them from feeling at home here in America, even if it was their biggest dream before. After hearing these stories, I have learned that when there are big changes in life, the question of identity and past experience often take on special importance. Our identity develops throughout our life. And all the experience with which we came to the United States have shaped this identity until now. And everything that we will encounter here will also impact our identity. We will meet new people, we'll learn new language and acquire new habits. Identity is personal. Our identity belongs only to us. But at the same time, it makes us feel connected to the other people. Let's say If you're Americans, Mexicans, or Ukrainians like me, right? We feel the kinship to the people from these countries. We speak the same language, share the same habits and holidays, and also that's why in Ukraine we have the same religion, we have the same faith, right? We celebrate the same holidays. And that's why even if people didn't go to the church in their native country or state, they go there here, because that's the place they feel at home. And we don't realize how much we miss home until we move. And it doesn't matter if you make this move between countries, states, or continents. That's how I lived for 8 years. Finally, my husband got visa. We moved to Minnesota, bought a house there. And the word house was always associated with the word home for us. In Ukraine, when people buy a house, they live for a long time in this house, or the whole generations lived in that house. That's why it was very important for us to have our own home. It meant that we belong to that place. But what we didn't know, that people here in the United States move often because of their work. So our neighbors kept changing, and after living there for couple more years, we realized that it didn't feel like home for us. We wanted to have a community, like-minded people around us. So we decided to move to Los Angeles, since that's a place for actors and filmmakers like us. All of us, we want to belong to the society, to the group of people where we feel our own. And when we are moving to another state or to another city, we always expect that the new place of residence will become our home. But it doesn't always happen like that. Some people assimilate and some do not. It all depends on our ability to integrate into another place. For example, when I first moved to the United States, I didn't know what baby shower was, because in my country they said you shouldn't buy things for an unborn child in advance. It's a bad luck. But I had a baby shower for my daughter here because I wanted to belong. And I was interested in observing how all our myths are destroyed when you get to know another culture. We begin to realize that not everything in this world as we were taught in our childhood. And the more you travel, the easier other world views are to accept. And if the immigrants could adequately accept the positive and negative sides of the new country, and at the same time to preserve the old traditions of the old country without conflict, that's the way for them to feel comfortable and become successful. There are people for whom it's difficult and exhausting, and both reactions are normal. It's really hard for us to understand what we really want when we live in one place, surrounded by the people who have their own expectations of us. And just because while we are trying to please everyone else and catch up with all the demands from the society we live in, we forget to listen to ourselves. And when we don't know who we are, we're trying to move to another city, to another state, to another country, just to feel liberated. But it's not going to happen until we find ourselves. If we don't know who we truly are and what we really want, it would be hard for us to find the place we belong to. We will always feel like we don't belong to our native country anymore, but we won't feel home here either. Remember, that's us who write our own history, and we decide how it will end. If it seems to you that you ended up on this island with absolutely nothing, I have good news for you. You have you left. And you're not only how you feel in this moment. You're your knowledge, your skills, your experience, and your memories, and everything that you acquired while sailing your ocean of life. Just bring it to the surface. Make it visible to yourself. Get to know yourself. and you will find the place you belong to. Thank you.